first, right, Jeff, before we get started?
Sure.
There you go.
Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Just to start off the meeting, before we call it to order, on September 24, 2020, a checklist. Let's see. As chair of the Timberlane Regional School District Budget Committee Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by audio and video utilizing a Zoom webinar platform where all members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and view by logging on to www.timberlane.net/Zoom-budcom. B, we have given notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. This information has been provided along with the agenda and posted to the board's website at www.timberlane.net. C, we have provided a phone number for the public to alert this public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. That phone number is 603-382-6541, extension 3955. D, we will adjourn the meeting and reschedule if the public is unable to access the meeting. Additionally, all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We will begin the meeting by taking a roll call attendance when members state their presence. They must also state whether there is anyone in the room with them during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. All right, so that is a whole lot of stuff to say every week. Hopefully we'll get to a place where we can actually meet in person again, folks. All right, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is September 24th at 7:03 p.m. Before we take a roll call, why don't we do a Pledge of Allegiance? Can I get, let's see, who's on this Zoom here?
Dean.
Can I get, what's that?
Dean will give you a flag. There it is.
Dean, thank you. Can I get Christy Eclair to lead off the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Christy. So with that, why don't we go ahead and do the roll call. Jeff, please.
Certainly. Christy Eclair,
I am here. I am alone in the room, but I have other people in the house.
Peter Belo, Brian Boyle,
I am here. I'm alone in the room, and there are other people in the house.
Alan David,
I am in the room alone, but there are other people in the house.
Kathleen Gorman. No. Julie Hammond. Michael Mascola.
I'm here and I am in the house alone.
Todd McCormick.
I am here. I am alone in the room, but there are people in my house.
Sue Sherman.
I'm here alone in my office, but there are other people in the house.
Phil Sherwood.
I am here. I'm alone in my office. There are other family members in the house, and I just want to flag it. Julie may or may not be on. I see her name, but she didn't respond.
You're right, I do see her name. I will check my email, Julie, if you are having any technical difficulties or if you're working with Dean. We'll let you do that. So, but I will check my email. So if you do have any problems, just feel free to email me and we'll see if we can get you straightened out. Mr. Chairman, I might add that I'm very pleased that hopefully that'll be the last roll call I have to do. I do have a proposal for a recording secretary this month for appointment, so that'll be great.
Excellent.
That recording secretary can do the roll call from now on.
I assume that would be Maria.
No, actually.
Oh.
She's too smart for that.
Okay.
Very well.
All right. So next, let's move on to the approval of the minutes, please. Can we get, which ones do we have first up here in the agenda packet? Let's see if we can get can I get a motion for approving the meeting minutes from the special meeting, September 10th, 2020 Budget Committee meeting?
So moved.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All right. I think
Motion was made,
from
Todd.
Brian and second from Sue.
Thank you.
And any discussion?
None here.
All right, they look good to me. If we have no discussion, can we do a roll call for these minutes, Jeff, please?
Christy O'Clair,
Yes.
Peter Bealow. Oh, Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Alan David,
Jane. That was last week's meeting, correct? We're talking about?
2 weeks ago, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
same, okay. I'll call Julie Hammond and Michael Mascola,
Yes.
Todd McCormick,
Yes.
Sue Sherman,
Yes.
Phyllis Sherwood.
Yes.
I'm seeing 6, so the motion carries.
Great. All right. Next, any correspondence, Jeff?
Believe we have any correspondence?
Okay. So next we'll move to delegations and individuals.
Does
Todd,
Michael have
Oh,
correspondence?
go ahead. Sorry.
at some point, I would like to address you and the board,
Okay.
preferably before the meeting gets too far, but not at the end.
All right.
Fit me in. with-
Do you want to do that in maybe unfinished business on the agenda, Michael? Or we could do it, I mean, we could do it right away if you want. Why don't we get through delegations and individuals first?
Okay.
Okay. So delegations and individuals, do we have anyone who would like to speak to the budget committee?
So Todd, I believe that we would ask that if anyone who's in attendance at the virtual meeting would like to comment, that they raise their virtual hand. Or raise
Right.
their Zoom hand. And I'm not seeing anyone. I don't know if you are.
I am not. All right, moving on, let's, before we get into the administrative report, I'm gonna let Michael speak to the board.
So Todd, I'm going to ask you the question, but the question is really for the SAU. Since you're the chair, I'll give it to you. I would like an answer, a short one and a simple one, of when we will start getting all of our packet material well in advance and not 2 hours before the meeting starts. I'm not interested in why there's a delay. I only want to know when it'll start showing up on time.
And I
Okay.
believe the understanding has been Friday before the meetings. And we, as you don't need to know why, you've indicated that entirely. I would foresee that as we were moving forward, we have a budget schedule, budget information can be in and posted to the school board at that time. It may be subject to any additions that we may have from that time, but that's a fair question, Michael. And that's the answer. And I
So-
believe that the next meeting will be fine.
Okay, so we're gonna decide tonight on the schedule for who's presenting to us in the upcoming meetings. So I echo what Michael said,
Yep.
and I would like to, again, see some more time for us to digest the information that's being presented to us. well beyond some hours before the meeting. But
Yeah, that's
Jeff,
fair.
you and I have spoken. I do know some of the background, and we had some late submittals. And the ultimate end, the end goal here is to knock down some of these budgets as early as possible. And I think we have more on the agenda tonight than we thought we were going to have 2 weeks ago. But that being said, the quicker we can have the information, the better. And I would appreciate it if we could start really trying to nail that down, a week in advance of our meetings, if we could.
That's fair. And I will say that this was a bit of a game time, pretty close to game time decision, depending on who was able to have their budgets full and complete and comfortable. And I would like to recognize our principal, Doug Blay, for being able to do that. We have had to shift a couple items around. I believe that we'll be able to set the schedule. And I believe that this will be the final week before we have technically all budgets in. So I think it should be a lot easier going forward. That said, there's going to be more content going forward as well. We don't have an awful lot of content this meeting. I know we have a couple budgets to look at. There's not a lot of content, but there will be as we move through the budget process. And it is important for me to have the board be able to have sufficient time to review those materials. Good.
Okay. So we will see some positive changes, Michael, moving forward. Okay.
May I just add to Michael's comments?
Sure.
I'll be brief, but the public expects us to do our due diligence as elected officials to make a good faith effort to understand the agenda and potentially figure out any questions we have before the call. And it's been challenging to do that. Agendas are a living, breathing document. They can evolve. There are always last minute additions for good reason, but things like meeting minutes, we shouldn't be reading them as we're sucking down the soup before we get on the call here. It's not putting, to do our jobs, to represent the public and do our due diligence, we do need more time.
Duly noted.
Okay. All right, with that, Jeff, you still have the floor because we're going to hand it to you for an administrative report.
Well, we're expecting our budgets to be in, our department budgets to be in within the next week or so and complete. I believe the school board will be taking a look at those budgets coming up. From a district perspective, I'm sure that you are fully aware that we are back at school in a hybrid model. There have been some challenges along the way in doing that, and that's okay. The district, I think, is working through them. And I believe that we're anticipating our middle school to a full return, which is the only school that currently is not that's fully remote. I believe that'll be Monday the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Cochran.
That is correct.
Yep, I believe we'll be back on track with that. As you know, we're on a Monday, Tuesday A model, Thursday, Friday B model. Wednesday is a fully remote day for everyone in the district to be able to work remotely so that our schools can be deep cleaned on that day between our sessions. So that continues to progress, and yeah, that's where we're at. There's quite a bit going on, but from a budgetary perspective, I think those are the big highlights.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that Dr. Cochran is on this call because it's not traditional that we have the superintendent with our budget committee meetings, but if this is a regular thing, I applaud it and I love it. And I think everyone else on this call will agree. So because this is an administrative report, Dr. Cochran, I would love it if you wanted to make a statement.
Just that I'm happy to be here. Budgeting and well, actually I'm almost the only person in my family that's not an accountant or in some way involved in the money business. But it has always been near and dear to me. I really believe in the importance of doing right by your taxpayers, doing right by your students, your employees. And I think it's incumbent upon me to get ramped up on our procedures as it relates to budgetary process, and also learn as much as I can about the budgets themselves. And I think if I'm trying to do the best I can do to lead the district, then I need to be informed. And being informed means more than just looking at data. It means listening to conversations, listening to people, listening to regular citizens. I get emails fairly regularly. that I try to respond to. And I think learning about the communities, learning about the range of concerns, learning about the history is important to try and help the board and administration, other administrators decide where we should be headed and why, and what are our priorities, because budgeting is all about priorities from my perspective. The source of money is not limitless. We're all taxpayers wherever we live, and we want to make sure that our money is being used wisely. I want people to know that this is an important process for me, that I value the people involved in it, and that I try to do my best every day to make sure that we're using the resources that we have, whether they be time, money, or other things, as well as possible for the benefit of the students in the community. That's that simple.
That's great. And let me just add that no offense to any of my budget committee brethren and sisters on the phone here or on the Zoom, but I've noticed that the participant level has gone up since you've been attending, Dr. Cochran, which is always a good thing. So I'm you know, if you want to keep joining us, maybe we'll have more people showing up, especially when we start going back in person in the audience. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So, all right, with that, let's go to reports of committees. I think Sue would be the only one that could report, but I'm guessing you still have not met yet.
So I had a conversation with the chair of the CIP committee that happens to be Brian Boyle. So Brian is underway getting a meeting going and looking at what our priorities would be and looking at our documentation, where we're at, what we've got projects in the hopper and moving along. So I would think the next time we meet as a budget committee, hopefully we've had a meeting. So.
Okay. All right. Well, seeing as how Brian gets the next part of this committee reporting, if you want to add anything to that, Brian, that'd be great. And then maybe segue into school board report.
Yeah, I think it's, I was hoping, like everybody, I guess, that we were going to be in the buildings sooner than later. That's why I was in no, quite frankly, rush. And I thought, it's me personally, I like it better when you're meeting in person, but that's just me personally. Now, as we are clearly in the budget season, we have to have a CIP meeting. I got some pretty good ideas, and it's not just my personal thoughts, but what is going to be a priority of the district, you know, with air quality and it's even before COVID. This has been a story of Timberlane, and I'm happy to see that we're not as in bad shape as several other districts in terms of air quality in the state, but I'm sure we can make it even better. So along those, going into the reports of the school board here, if you will,
yep.
The Timberlane School Board is 100% concentrating on trying to get more students into buildings, staff back sooner than later. We're all getting, as you can well imagine, heavily showered with emails and people. It's hurting people's. It's not only is it affecting the students' education, but it's clearly affecting families in a not in a positive manner. So Dr. Cochran is clearly heard loud and clear from the Timberlane School Board what we're trying to do and everything we can do to as a board to make that happen. That's what we're trying to do, and that's clearly been the priority of the board in the last 2 meetings. So I know other stuff's going on at Timberlane, but this is clearly the board's priority here to get this thing fully functional sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I was just going to ask you, I'm guessing your inbox has been a little more full this year than past years being on the school board.
Yeah, I'll have to get another phone, you know, because it's, you always hear that word about blowing up the phone. Yeah, we get, there's people unhappy, and I will tell you that you mentioned, Todd, earlier about the more participants. Well, at last week's school board meeting, there was over an hour of delegations. And
I saw.
So, yeah, so we're aware of it. We're,
Yep.
you know, and
Brian, do you know, are you guys going to continue doing your meetings from the PAC, or was that kind of a one-time thing because of the,
I think it's every other week. That's what Kim wants to do, and makes sense. But I think that we're still
every other meeting or every other week?
every other meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Every other meeting is going to be in person in the immediate future here. But I think the PAC gives you the ability to have. We never know in advance who's going to show up at those meetings. So if you try to have a meeting in SU building with social distancing, you could probably only have 4 or 5 people in the audience.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So the PAC clearly gives us a better option.
All right. Let's talk about that under other business for our committee, guys. Just you know what we're all thinking about that moving forward. But all right, thanks a lot, Brian. Appreciate the report.
Yeah.
And let's we'll move on to unfinished business, even though I don't know that there is any. Jeff?
Nope.
No. All right. Skipping through that, we're going to go to new business. And tonight, we thought we were going to have no budget presentations. Instead, we have really 2, as well as a appointment of a budget committee recording clerk. So we'll go ahead and start off with that. But I just want to say I'm encouraged. I don't think in my tenure on this board, this budget committee, I don't think we've done this many budgets on the first official budget committee meeting. So that's a good start, and I'm encouraged by it. So, but Jeff, go ahead and take it away on the appointment of the budget committee recording clerk.
I believe that a nomination will be in order for a recording clerk or board secretary. I would like to nominate Jaleese Morales. She has been working in our human resources department at the SAU. She's been with us not quite a year, maybe about 9 months or so. I've been exceptionally impressed with her work, and I put the opportunity out there for her, and I would be very pleased if she were able to come on board as a recording secretary. She is not at the meeting at present, as you can tell, but if the board does see it fit to make a nomination and vote on that nomination, I'd be very happy to have Jaleese here for the next meeting as recording secretary.
Excellent. Can we get a motion? I'm sorry. Can you pronounce her name again, Jeff?
Jaleese Morales.
Can we get a motion to nominate Jaleese, please?
I'll happily nominate Jaleese Morales for recording clerk.
I'll second.
All right. So seconded.
Any discussion? Can I poll?
All right. Let's do a roll call.
All right. Christy Auclair,
Yes.
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Alan David.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask Julie Hammond. I saw you, Julie. Are you able to vote? Maybe not. Michael Mascola,
Yes.
Todd McCormick,
Yes.
Sue Sherman,
Yes.
Bill Sherwood.
Yes.
The nomination passes 7-0. 7 in favor.
Excellent. Well, I know she's not here, but welcome, Jaleese. We're looking forward to working with you. And will she be at the next meeting, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, moving on. Let's move on to Pollard Elementary budget presentation, and I believe that would be Doug.
That is me. Thank you all for having me tonight. I really spent a lot of time on this budget, just really thinking about what we really needed in the school, shifting some budget lines because we have some older budget lines, especially in the library, where we have some old audio visual lines that have had money in the past. So this budget that I've developed, our current budget's $134,875.78. My proposed budget for next year is $132,875. $82.15, which is a decrease of $2,793.63. The majority of that decrease is coming out of the general supply lines, about $1,000 of decrease. Curriculum supplies about $900. The decrease, part of that decrease is because they've really looked at student data, student enrollment trends. And in the past, we typically used 485 and 490 as the student population of Pollard. Pollard can be a little tricky with our population because we have 20 to 30 in-district transfers a year. We have, right now, obviously the real estate market's popping, but I think a better population for our school, or more accurate population for budgeting, is 480. So that's part of the decrease too. I think that's a more true number for budgeting. I think we talk a little bit, it would have been a little lower, but I am asking for $3,360 for individual desks. I have to tell you that if I had more, my elementary school, like most elementary schools, has tables, trapezoid tables, large tables that are only 5 foot long. If we have social distancing regulations into next year, the desks would, first of all, they need to be replaced because it's time, but they would open up more possibilities for fitting kids in rooms, using some other spaces. Unfortunately, we just don't have, at Pollard at this time, even with 500 kids, I have about 30 individual student desks. It really has limited us next year, or this year, and would limit us next year if social distancing is part of the 21-22 school year. So that's sort of my budget in a nutshell. I think it's fair. I think it's, definitely looking at what we need. I think it will cover everything we need very well. And I hope you find that's a fair proposal. I don't know if anyone has questions. But...
Any questions for Doug?
I have none.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Nice job.
Thanks a lot, Doug. Thank you.
Doug, thank you very much for coming in a bit lower there and taking a thoughtful approach to your budget, but also being able to have it complete. I know that it's a very challenging environment in your school as well. And I do appreciate your being able to get it in early so we can have you here tonight. Thank you.
Fun stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Moving on, we are going to now look at the transportation budget.
Very well. And I am happy to present that. Just get into that here. So we have some outliers here in transportation, which I'll go over in as we go through the budget. Looking at a current year budget of $3,458,880 proposed. Sorry, I think that those numbers might be reversed. We're requesting $3,458,880. Current year $3,384,297, increase of $74,583. Sorry, 05. Some of the lines that you'll see are down. One of them is down, which is the homeless transportation, which is that line that you'll see first on your actual budget sheet. 12,000 lower. It just hasn't really been the need that we had expected that it would be. So we therefore are requesting less funding in that line. The next is our regular transportation line, which is the 2721-519, and that is going to be going up 67,656. And I'm going to go down to those items in the budget in just a moment. But our special transportation as well, 2722-519, looking at an increase of 60,893. I'm going to jump down to those in your agenda packet to review those just a bit so that we can see a little bit more detail of what is in those lines. There's a 12,000 reduction in our homeless transportation, which is required under federal law. It's McKinney-Vento transportation. You can see our regular program transportation showing an increase. You'll see the various elements of what we use and what we allocate our budget to. Not only is it just transportation itself, which is home to school, we have an Edgelog routing system, which if anyone has logged on to see where your student will get picked up, that's the program that ties all that together. We have a late bus run, which is typically three days a week, 4 buses. You can see the amount there. For both of these numbers, for both the home to school and for the late bus, we have contracts in place, which were negotiated, and those are the rates that tie into that contract based on the use that we would anticipate. We also have a middle school and high school, or high school and middle school crossing guard, and those are the expenses that we would expect there. And we have a small allowance for a voting day shuttle in the event that becomes necessary at any of our schools. So you can see how that budget's broken down, what goes into it, where these numbers arise from. Special education transportation. So that's something that we're going to be going out to bid on shortly, probably after the budget is out, but before we finalize the budget, we should have some results there. And I've allowed a 7% increase in that budget, or requested a 7% increase in that budget preliminarily as a placeholder, but I don't know what that contract's going to look like when it's done, and or when the bids come in. Maybe we'll be lower, maybe we'll be lower than we are now, maybe we'll be 3% higher, maybe we'll be 10%, I don't know. The special education transportation environment in a lot of ways is closing in. There's been a lot of consolidation from a lot of the bigger players in that space, and that is causing a limit on the numbers of potential bidders to come in and offer services, which in turn has resulted in increasing cost. So that's a little bit of what that line's all about. I do anticipate that prior or around the time that we're looking to finalize the budget, we'll have some final numbers in there. Hopefully they'll be lower than where they are, but I figured just be safe and factor in a 7% increase as a placeholder there. Our extended school year transportation, that's typically special education transportation, takes place in the summer. We're requesting a decrease in that line. When we're trying to factor out and figure out what we may have for extended school year transportation, we have to look at what our needs are, where we're transporting students to. Our run rate from the year that just ended, which included extended school year service from the prior July and August, is probably the best place to start. This year was not a very good place to look at our actuals and try and project out where we're going to be.
Right.
We projected a 5% increase over the fiscal year 20 actual of 117,000. So we'd be requesting 122,000. This really will depend somewhat on how our special education vendor transportation contract comes in as to what that's going to look like. We've moved slightly in the model as well, so I can see a little bit less demand, but hopefully we'll be back to the normal extended school year transportation model and extended school year transportation delivery that we've had in the past, and therefore we would have, I think, much less expense than what we've been budgeting for. So for the most part, that's it. We have a small increase in vocational transportation. Just important to understand in that line, we have, and just to refresh everyone's memory, or Christy, if you're new, this is probably a good line to demonstrate this on. You see right here, that's the initial line. So it's vocational transportation, 87,284. Below that, we have the detail for that line, which is right here, all the way across. Those two numbers make up that 87,284. So when we see the initial 87,284, we always look below that to get the detail. That's the detail. There are two components to our vocational transportation. One component is our career and technical education vocational bus, which runs to the Salem CTE Center. And we have contractual rates already in place for that. So we're projecting those budget requests based on our known rates. We also provide reimbursement for individual student transportation to various campuses like Pinkerton, should students be going there. So that line is comprised of those two major elements. And those are the two that make up the total request in that line. So that's it. So you will be seeing additional transportation requests come through at the school and program level. Music transportation, or music may will submit their transportation as part of their request. schools, as part of theirs, may be submitting their field trip requests. So you will see some additional athletics will have some athletic transportation. You'll see some additional costs come in that aren't part of our overall transportation, but are building or program specific. So that said, I'm happy to answer any questions or walk through the budget if anyone has any questions.
Anyone with any questions about transportation? Oh, Dr. Cochran?
Actually, a comment. Special education transportation is notoriously volatile. I can remember going through budget committee meetings in prior districts where the budget committee is meeting on Tuesday, Thursday, and there was a significant jump from Tuesday to Thursday and then back to the next Tuesday. Most districts, and I believe we do, try to work really hard to minimize busing costs for special education. So if we have somebody who's going to Easter Seals in Manchester, we will try and find, call the other local districts and see if they're going as well, in which case we can double up. What happened on the Tuesday was we had a budget number. And on Thursday, a student from another district had aged out. And therefore we were now picking up the entire bill instead of 50% of the bill of the transportation. That differential was somewhere around, I don't know, 20-some thousand dollars across 48 hours. Now the next week it was back down again because we had a similar thing. So it's useful to realize that with the sped transportation budget, it's really not over till it's over. And so I think Jeff is wise to budget cautiously in that case and hope that we have a surplus. We don't budget for beyond what we have. And then we try to get as much saving as we can by collaborating with local districts and so on. So my understanding is that we're doing a pretty good job of that.
Dr. Cochran, while we have you, how's the busing going so far? Like, do you guys have any statistics or numbers as to like capacity of the buses this year?
I don't at this point in time. Jeff may. It's in his.
Well, I will say one thing, Dr. Carden, I don't know that we've spoken about this. I was a little somewhat dubious to bring it up. I didn't want to jinx things, but our transportation coordinator and our bus yard have really done a very good and very solid job. Our buses are at 1 student per seat. And one of the really big concerns that I had was that we're going to get into having to have double runs. We only have 2 tiers, which is high school, middle school, and elementary school. Sandy Hodgkins and our transportation folks, our scheduling folks, Mark Pedersen, have really worked very hard to make sure that our cohorts are as evenly distributed as possible. I think our parents are appreciating the burden that we have on transportation as it is to try and reduce our numbers on buses. And so far, we have not really even had to have consideration for that 3rd tier of transportation, which gets very, 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 very expensive, expensive. So I'm very, very pleased that we're able to get all of our students in and have them accommodated under our social distancing and not have that be an additional expense. Now I've said it, so we'll just see what happens next week. Knock wood, but I'm hoping that we can stay that way.
Mr. Chairman. Todd?
Yes, sorry.
So I prefer to use the term that special ed, whether it's the whole process or transportation, is fluid. Dr. Cochran, the use of the word volatile made me perk up a little bit there.
It can change. It can change. It can change quickly.
Yes, I'm fine with that, but not volatile. Thank you.
What's interesting is the point that I was trying to make was even if there's no change within the special education population or the transportation, there are things that we work really hard at typically to try and save as much money as possible. And despite all our hard work, sometimes things break that we don't get it. So I just want you to know that in terms of planning, you have to err a little bit on the side of caution with this one because there will be typically many changes, especially across a district this size, across the school year.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, concerns about transportation?
Nope.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff, Dr. Cochran. And we are then now going to move on to other business. And much like unfinished business, well, I don't know that we have anything in other business, but maybe we do. Do we, Jeff?
Well, I'd like to just review the schedule that I have sort of backed everything into, if you wouldn't mind, just to make sure
Yep.
that
So future agendas, yeah.
this is what we sent out. Now that we've had this meeting, I've been able to
Oh,
sort
let me
out the-
pause you right there, Jeff. I think I skipped over the budget committee budget. Did
Oh.
anyone want to talk about that? Oh, I'm just kidding.
we can wait. So
Yeah.
I have, normally that's part of the school board budget, and your lines are really, I think the primary line is the clerk, our board clerk.
Right.
So obviously I'm very happy to have a board clerk, and we have the budget for it this year. So I think it's about 5,000. I don't think it'll be changing too much. But I do
Okay.
put that on there because I think that it's important as a placeholder for this committee to understand really fully what the nooks and crannies are in these expenses, where these expenses are, and what they're made up of. So that's pretty much your budget. So the budget committee does a very good job every year.
There you go. Is there any comments on that, or does anyone want to make any motions for any enormous increases, or should we move on from there?
Move on.
Okay. All
Happy
right,
to
sorry,
be the
Jeff,
most
go
efficient
ahead.
department at the SAU.
What's that?
We're the most efficient entity within the SAU.
That's right.
What can we say?
That's right, Phil. All right, go on, Jeff. Sorry.
Here we are then. So you can all see that. We've had our meeting on the 10th. We've had our meeting, we're having our meeting tonight. We're reviewing these budgets, and as a result of Pollard and our transportation budget and our budget committee budget, I would like to propose that next meeting, we have Atkinson Academy, Sandown North, our technology budget, and I'm really not sure yet. I think that the SAU line, and this is an interesting conundrum.
Yep.
The SAU line, the costs that Timberlane pays for SAU services are in one line in the budget. And that typically has been part of the school board budget out of convenience. And I think that we'll be breaking them up so that you'll have your administrative costs. They're in the 2300 series of accounts. And so I think that we'll have those budgets broken up, but we'll have two budgets that would have formerly been together on that night for presentation. Costs that go into those lines would be personnel costs, any other strictly administrative costs. A lot of costs that we have now that might be SAU costs that are split between the districts will fit very well, not necessarily into an administrative function like an SAU type line, administrative line, but maybe a technology line or any of the other lines that we have. They're actual functional lines, but we will have some expenses there. School board is really a lot of the district costs, not only the school board line itself, the school board budget, but our audit line, our legal line, a lot of those lines that we've looked at in the past. So those I would be looking to have at our next board meeting. Will be sorry.
Let me just make a point here. So Jeff, that's the next meeting. That's in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
The school board's meeting next Thursday, right?
Mhm.
So because this is the first year that we are forging a budget as a single SAU, right?
Mhm.
I'm personally fine if that's not worked out yet by the 8th, if we can somehow swap in one of the other ones from the 22nd or the 12th, just so we get it right, as our first year doing this budget for our new SAU. Do we know what the SAU number is even going to be yet at this point?
Todd, I think it's important to remember that this is an evasive answer. It's not a one-to-one, comparison.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know where we're going to be on that. It really depends on personnel. And I think that mostly we'll be picking up personnel costs in that line.
Yeah.
So
Why don't we just swap that? Why don't we put the SAU school board budget down and bring up Sandown Central's budget's going to be small. Why
Yeah.
can't we just swap it now? I mean, or
Sure, I agree.
Danville, and push that SAU school board down closer to the end when you might have some more accurate kind of numbers. Why
I
are we
agree.
forcing that?
I
And
would
again,
agree.
I would do the same thing with technology, but I'll go with at least get the school board SAU one down a week and bring up Sandown Central.
Mhm.
Just my school board hat on there, Brian.
There you go. Nicely done, Sue.
No, I agree completely, Sue. I think we need to give the school board time and give Jeff time to kind of hash out where the SAU school board budget is how that's gonna look. And again, I don't want to pressure any principals that aren't ready or put any undue stress on them with all they're dealing with, but you know, if it's possible to do what Sue just recommended and just kind of push that SAU school board out, and if it, I mean, I don't know, do you have a reason you think technology needs to move out, Sue?
I just think it's one of the larger budgets, and I think Danville's small and they should be able to pretty much walk through it the way Pollard did, and Sandown Central should be able to just walk through it. It's a small school, two small schools.
Yep.
Absolutely.
What's your thought on that, Jeff?
So I would tend to agree. The only reason maybe SAU or school board might be good ahead of time is to get a preview of it, but quite frankly, I don't think it's going to be settled
No,
on the 8th.
no. I mean,
I'd
you're
rather
just
have it-
you're just delivering the first draft of the budget to them next Thursday, right? So that's only a week later.
I don't think that's fair. I think give everybody them as much time as they can. So we can be
Yeah.
as accurate, because we'll get one number out there and everybody will think that's the number, and then.
So I'll agree with that, Sue. And I think that if you look at the meeting on the 12th of November, 3 of those are really the curriculum and professional learning, student services, special education, and maintenance and facilities. Those really are really the main functions we want to wait as long as possible
Right.
to hear.
Mhm.
And the schools themselves might go up, might go down, but in terms of technology, that can be there can be some big initiatives coming up. It really, depending on how we are able to view the current year,
Yep.
will help determine what our needs are going forward. So that probably would be good to have as we move along further out. So I'm fine moving Danville up. And I don't know if maybe high school should move up
No,
as well.
no, that's a bigger budget. I'd
Yep.
leave, I really think move Danville up and Sandown up to the 8th, put
Yep.
the school board one down, putting technology down.
Yep.
Yeah, that will be a longer couple of evenings, but
That'd be
okay,
a good swap. That'd be
Yeah,
a good
that's-
swap.
yeah.
And I'm not even sure that the evenings may be as long as you think. I think though that we really want to have their best numbers, and their best
Yeah.
numbers are as late in the budget process as possible.
Yeah,
I
we
was gonna suggest Angelo and Tony, but I think giving them some extra time is probably a wise thing
No,
too.
leave them.
Yep. Good.
Not bad.
So I will simply flip these with these right here,
Yes,
and we'll be done.
yes.
All right. This meeting should be over in the next 10 or 15 minutes, so maybe we can call right back.
So good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Very well.
All right, what does everyone else think? Anyone else have thoughts on that?
I agree with Sue's proposal.
All right,
Works.
okay. Hi, Julie.
I've been here. I was in the viewer thing though.
Oh, gotcha. All
I'm
right.
sorry. It took me a
Okay.
while to finally catch on to,
You could have voted with like raise your hand, you know?
yeah, right, I know. I'm like, how come I can't get my picture on here?
You either have tall door handles.
I'm sitting on the floor.
Floor.
Very tall.
All right, so I think we have a plan for the next meeting. That kind of covers other business. Future agenda and dates are pretty much already set. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to throw out there before we call for a wrap?
I have a question that kind of came up at the last meeting when we were going over the ups and downs of last year. And I brought up the issue with out of town placement, out of district placement. I'm requesting through the chair, if he would request with Dr. Cochran and the business manager, if we could have at some point those numbers, how many kids, the historical point of view, how many kids were outplaced in, let's say, 18, 19, 19, 20, and what that looks like right now. That's a huge, huge increase. And I think the board should know so they understand how expensive that is. Not that we control how much we spend per kid because it's all over the place. But I think that would be a good historical perspective. So I was kind of hoping we might get that information.
Okay. Good idea. Good suggestion. Jeff, Dr. Cochran, do you think we could get those numbers?
For clarity, Susan, what type of information other than total dollar, number of students?
I just want number of
types of
students.
placement?
Yeah, now I don't care where they're placed. I'd like to know number of student, a historical view. So number of students we outplaced in, let's say, the school year 17, 18, number of students we placed 18, 19, number of students we placed 19, 20. So we can see that, I believe, big jump, but
So why don't we go back 5 years? Why don't we say, let's go back 5 years? So we
I
can
was going
trend.
to say, I asked Susan a question and she slid in an extra year on me just for that. I mean, because she didn't say 17, 18 the first time.
Yeah.
This is what you
Let's-
get for showing up to these meetings. I like
Yeah,
it.
that's right. Let's say 5 years so that we can try to do like a sort of a trend analysis on
Yeah.
that.
And I thought
So-
you were going to do that with a legal budget too, but I don't know if you put that to bed, Todd, or.
No, I haven't put it to bed. I've done it myself. And I'm happy to share with, well, I still got to work on the spreadsheet a little bit, but I'll share that out with the group when I'm
And-
finished.
And it's Jeff's responsibility to make sure I never ask Susan any more questions.
This is, I
You don't
will
know
tell-
me yet.
Yeah. She finds ways. She'll find a way. So I will say though, I will point out one slightly complicating factor just to keep in mind. We don't send one student out for an entire year often. We may send a student out for a shorter period of time. So
Right.
when it almost has to be looked at on an FTE basis of the total year.
Yeah.
How many students would you say would be sent out? We can have, 10 students out, but we are only, of those 10, 2 might be short-term placements,
Mhm.
which may mean that we are at 8, the equivalent of 8 or 9 FTEs for the year out. So I think that's going to be the view that I'll be asking the special education director to be able to present those in is just say, look, if you looked at it like an FTE, how many FTEs were placed out of district?
Mhm.
If that's fair.
Sure.
Yep, that's fair. So do you want that for the next meeting, or do we want to have that presented to us when we do student services and special education the week of the November
I
12th?
want it for the next meeting,
For the next meeting? Okay,
That's- personally,
yep,
because I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks.
okay. All right, Jeff, can you make that happen, please?
I will do everything that I can. That may be a little closer to the to the meeting time, only because I know that our special education director is overwhelmed and probably trying to put her budget together, and has a number of other issues going on. But I will certainly make the request. And quite frankly, as that budget is being put together, if this is the perspective that is able to be used, that might be helpful. So
Okay,
might be something that might come up anyway.
great.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss?
I don't want to keep the meeting here, but I did have one more potential thing if it made sense. I just wanted to run it by the committee. It's been sort of a long-standing, I won't say thorn in my side. It's something that I'd like to try and get resolved. And that's just where to post our materials. So I will ask you if I can have the liberty of just a moment to check with the committee to see how everything can be placed best for the committee and for the public. So would you have a moment for that?
Yes.
Okay. So historically, we have in the past several years, I've posted under upcoming meetings and events, and I've posted your meeting materials in one folder that ties to the meeting on the meeting calendar, which is helpful. You can see everything at once. And I think the problem that I'm having is that I know, and I've heard it from some members of the committee who've heard it from the public, it's a heck of a lot easier to be able to go in if the public would want to see the budgets that are presented to be able to go in and see those in one tidy place, right? So they should be able to go in and say, under documents, this is our budget committee meeting. This is what was presented. And it would give it a lot easier of a view for our public to be able to go in and just see all of our meetings listed here under documents. With the same meeting materials, I've had requests to put our certain department budgets in Excel format. There they are. There's the agenda package. Otherwise, for our public to go in and look, if they wanted to look at it from a calendar view, you almost have to go in and say, well, which meeting was that at? Which meeting was something heard at? And gee, I gotta poke in here. It wasn't there. I've got to go in here. And does anyone have any objection if I start using or utilizing that documents folder under budget committee with our meetings by date? So if someone wanted to see what Pollard presented, someone wanted to see Atkinson presented, all they'd have to do is go into the budget committee meeting dates and they'd be all lined up for that purpose. When we get into a calendar view, it's not always helpful. Let me just scoot back here. It's not always helpful because you can see here that it's quite tidy all in one row, but once you get into the calendar, this is what it looks like. And you've got to, the public has to go in, gee, was it at this meeting? Was it in that meeting? Was it, was it at this meeting, that meeting? Nope, I'd like to have them all in one spot. Is there any objection from the committee if I do that to make it a little easier for the public while giving you guys the information that you'd like in the way that you'd like it?
I have no objection.
I don't have an objection. I mean, I've been fishing around in there since you posted a bunch of stuff today, and I noticed the change and I liked it.
Yeah,
Good.
simple. Keep it simple.
I mean, it seems so simple and so obvious. It begs the question, why haven't we done it this way previously? Was there a reason that we didn't?
Yes, there was a very specific request to have these agendas posted on the calendar for whatever reason. And quite frankly, I just don't think that it was given enough thought. And in order to try and bridge that gap a little bit, last year I had put in some links here under the documents to say, yep, like a hyperlink that, yep, if you want to see the Pollard budget, it was going to be presented on 9/24, so you could jump over to that meeting in the calendar. To me, yes, okay, you can go into the calendar, you can see the meeting and all of that. Let's try and keep all the documents together. So I would like to recognize, by the way, because I put this problem out there. This system that we have is not incredibly robust, and this interface that we have is not incredibly robust. Anyone who has to post anything to any environment like this, this is an older SharePoint site. It's not very user-friendly, so we're trying to work within the confines of it. The newer systems are a lot easier. I think we're looking to migrate over to that. We're not there yet. That shouldn't change why and how the public can access the information. I brought this up to Maria Watkins. She's on the call right now and said, gee, can I have a fresh perspective on this? Here's what I need to do. Here's what we'd like to do. Here's an outstanding here's a problem that we've been having. And Maria said, geez, when I go to look, I look under documents. When I go to look for documents, if I'm a member of the public, I go to documents. So is there a way that when I click on documents, yeah, I want this budget. And geez, if I look at it by meeting, that's fine. There it is. At least it's there, and at least all the meetings will be sequential, and you can just bring it right down. Maria is my business operations coordinator, or more probably better known as the assistant business administrator. She is on the call tonight. She's been helping me out tremendously in getting budgets and getting a lot of these things sorted out. And I certainly appreciate the perspective that she's been able to offer on this. This can solve one small problem that we have. And yes, Todd, Phil, it was just perspective. That's it. So I appreciate it. So good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we are at 1 hour. And if no one else has anything else they want to bring to the table, I'm going to ask someone to motion to adjourn.
Can I have a quick question, Todd?
Yep.
Because I'm sure, Jeff, you must know the answer here. The Compass program, what budget would that be under?
Student services, I believe.
Okay. Which will come in
22nd of November.
Okay. Okay.
No.
No, sorry. 12th.
Yeah, it'd be the 12th. I will check. I'm going to check out the newly revised schedule here with Danville and Sandown Central already flipped. and they're on the 12th.
Yep.
There it is. It's either going to be special education or student services. I believe it's under the student services budget. So
Okay.
very good.
All right. Brian, you get to make the motion then.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Can we get a second?
No one wants a second. It's such a good time.
I know.
I'll second it.
There you go. Let's say Julie, since she was part of the audience for so long.
Can we send someone over, Julie, to help you get up?
All right, let's roll call that.
All right, if we are ready. So Christy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
and Phil.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you in 2
All right.
weeks.
Night. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Carpen, you're required to be here now.